All right, let's get back to Romans chapter 1 this morning. There is a possibility that we may finish the first chapter of Romans. I always say possibility because I'm going to leave it at that. One never really knows with me. Stuff will just come up. The topic of today's sermon is America, the model of the reprobate mind. If there's any clear example or model or living definition or axiom of what a reprobate mind is, we are that axiom. That's not to say, of course, that this is exclusively an American thing. Obviously not, because the context of which Paul wrote this to had to do with the cultures, the Roman and the Greek cultures and other cultures, other Gentile cultures that he dealt with at his time. So it couldn't possibly refer contextually to us, because us wasn't existing at that particular time. So in all fairness, we have to examine again the text in its grammatical and cultural experience to be able to and historical culture and etc. to understand what the text is clearly saying. Historical setting. Old sleepy mind. Sometimes it takes a little time to wake up. Having said that, of course, it is rather clear that these sins that were prevalent at the time that Paul wrote them are clearly evident since the beginning of time and are clearly evident today in our vaunted culture. The American culture seems to think that we can go around the world and set the world straight. And it's about time that other leaders from other countries are saying, clean up your own house before you decide to come and clean up everybody else's house. But America is the model, really is the model of a reprobate mind. We said a reprobate mind is a mind that does not have the capacity to reason between that which is right or wrong, or righteous and unrighteous. And the evidence of that is seen in the behavior of what this mind will do when it is given over by God to its inevitable end, and that is it rationalizes its evils, it rationalizes wickedness, and it continues in a pathway to do those things that are unrighteous and ungodly. So that's the model. That's the example of the reprobate mind. We concluded last time by saying the following verses describe the results of a reprobate mind. And really, if you can't see that, and can't see that this is God's clear and final declaration of mankind that we see every day in our own society, you're either lying or you're reprobate. That's pretty much the choices. You're lying or you're a reprobate. Because it's clear the American culture is a model for reprobation, and perhaps as no other nation is, frankly. And then again, these are the sins that describe the results of rejecting God as a creator. Giving him the proper worship and thanksgiving and submission to him as creator. These are the results of rejecting God. These sins are also the proof that a society has been judged by God because they will not worship and serve and thank him. So he gives them over to their own desires that they choose over him. In other words, you own it. That's it. It's all yours, baby. You don't want God? The result of that is all yours. You can't put that on his doorstep. It's all yours. These sins are the results of a person or a society which has been given over by God in judgment. And lastly, these sins are as clearly what we see in this country, but not just this country, but we do see them here in abundance, unabated, and shamelessly shoved in our faces and dared to be questioned or rebuked. Well, what are they? Let's go to verse 29. Being filled with, in fact, I want to go back to verse 28. I want to make sure we get the continuity right. And even as they did not like to retain God in their knowledge, God gave them over to a reprobate mind to do those things which are not convenient, being filled with all unrighteousness, fornication, wickedness, covetousness, maliciousness, full of envy, murder, debate, deceit, malignity, whisperers. Go to verse 30. Backbiters, haters of God, despiteful, proud, boasters, inventors of evil things, disobedient to parents. What? What else? Without understanding, covenant breakers, without natural affection, implacable, unmerciful, who knowing the judgment of God, that they which commit such things are worthy of death, not only do the same, but have pleasure in them that do them. I mean, just at its reading, there is a familiarity with the sins, these acts of unrighteousness to our own culture. I mean, just at the reading of it, you could see that. I mean, this is your morning paper every day, right here, Romans 1. Being filled with all unrighteousness. It is interesting because it means when it says being filled, it's like we take this cup right here, this cup of coffee, which is about empty, so I can't really use it in its fullest extent. Excuse me. Good coffee. It would be like taking this cup and filling it with coffee until there was absolutely no room at all, right to the last drop. Okay, that's what it's talking about. It's talking about filled to the full. No room left for anything else. At the time of this recording, it is a week from Thanksgiving. Usually people associate being stuffed with Thanksgiving, whether it's the stuffed turkey or you and I being stuffed. We're unbuttoning buttons and what have you. We're laying stretched out, like being on a gurney to let the food digest. So it's the expression being stuffed. You've heard that expression. We've said it. That's the same Greek word. It means to be stuffed. Filled to the full with all unrighteousness. Now, all means all of every kind, okay, and every type. So it speaks of not only the kinds of unrighteousness, but the types, how that unrighteousness is implemented. So all and every kind and every type and every implementation of unrighteousness. A society, an individual is filled to the full, stuffed with it. It speaks of that which is mind, body, spirit, thoughts, whatever. The entire person is given over to this fullness of unrighteousness. How do you not see that? We just started verse 29. All right, being filled with all, filled to the full, filled to the brim, filled to the full of God's retribution. Grammatically speaking, being filled indicates a state of completion. This is a completed act. It is God's divine judgment, final and complete. Being filled to the full with every kind and type of expressions of unrighteous behavior described in the following. Number one, unrighteousness. Moral wrongfulness of character, life, and action. Iniquity. To be unjust, to be unrighteous, to be wrong. Every vice that is contrary to what God declares to be righteous is expressed in unrighteousness. Whatever the word righteous means, unrighteousness is the exact opposite of it, to every degree. So that's what happens when a culture is given over to a reprobate mind. What else? Well, number two, filled to the full with all kinds and every type and every expression, listen, of fornication. Okay? Which encompasses any and all sexual sins. All of it. You don't have to go through any list. It encompasses every and all kind of sexual sins. Not every and not only every and all kind and types, but expressions of those sins. That's important. Adultery, homosexuality, lesbianism, which we've already seen in this chapter, as that which is, especially lesbianism and male homosexuality, which is unnatural. It's unnatural. It's the exact opposite of what God deems as natural. It is completely unnatural. Intercourse with animals, definitely unnatural, but on the rise, to my understanding. I read a lot of this stuff, and it just scares me. You can only go so far, and you got to stop reading it, because it's sickening. Intercourse with animals, sexual intercourse with close relatives, again, on the rise. That stuff is unnatural, disgusting. It is the net result of being given over to a reprobate mind. That's what it is. That's when we talk about, again, being filled with all and every kind, type of, and expressions of these types of behaviors. So whatever it is, it's all encompassed in this in this particular description. And that includes sex with divorced men and women who shouldn't be remarried, etc. Then we talked about every kind. The next is wickedness. Every kind of, every type and every expression of wickedness, which means depravity. And we talk about someone being depraved. The word depravity refers to someone who's corrupt by nature. That's the difference. The distinction is man has never been good. There's nothing good about a man. Man by nature, by essence, by his own being is corrupt because of his sinfulness. This is, again, one of the reasons why so much alleged gospel preaching is not gospel preaching, because it doesn't address the true condition of a man. And I say man, I mean mankind, women, children, whatever. We're talking about people who are depraved. It speaks of iniquity, evil purpose as in desires. It speaks of those who are plotters of evil, listen, at every and any level, to the small level, all the way up to whatever height you could think of. That's what this wickedness involves. They plan to do evil. How can I do this person wrong today? That person is reprobate. See, we don't like to see things from God's description and prescription. We don't like God's remedy to much of anything. You know, if you're sick, you go to the doctor if you have some sense. The level of sickness you could think of, well, I'm okay. I think this is a cold. You take the cold medicine, a few days later, you're back on your feet. That's good. But your body will tell you that after 3 weeks, that's not normal. And so you take time off from work, and you go to the doctor. You go to the hospital, set up an appointment. Sometimes the sickness is of such nature where you don't have time for an appointment. You go to either urgent care or you go to the emergency room, because depending upon the level of whatever you have, you want someone to diagnose this so you can get treated. That makes perfect sense. The doctor takes x-rays. They usually take blood, standard, sometimes urine, whatever the symptoms are. They want to try to get to the bottom of whatever it is that ails you. And that's good. You done good. You want to get well. Doctor says you have such and such. And this is what you need to take for X number of days or whatever to get over the such and such. And you joyfully go downstairs to the, the area where they have the medication. What do they call that place? The pharmacy. Very good, because I just forgot it. So that's why you had to help me. You go down to the pharmacy, wait in that long line, and they call your name. So-and-so, go to window 1. You go to window 1, give them your card, give them your payment, take the medicine, the nice little white bag, get in your car, go home, pop it open, take the medicine. A few days later, you feel good. It worked. Back to whatever you do, right? God says, you're depraved. I know you. I made you. I'm not some doctor you visit and based upon symptoms, okay, and his template, he guesses right. The chances are the guesswork was correct. I made you. I know you. You're depraved. You don't like my RX. You don't like my prescription. But it doesn't mean that the prescription isn't accurate. So here's another person, same exact scenario. They're sick. They do everything that the other person did, except they don't go to the window to get their prescription. They shrug it off. They go home. That just costs too much to buy the medication. I think I'm okay. Then a few days later, they die. Both had the same opportunity. One chose the right path. The other was stupid and died. Most people are like the second one, spiritually. God says, I'm answering your question. You wake up of a morning, you see these things going on, and out of your mouth, over and over again, you say, how could these things be? And how could this happen? And how could people do fill in the blank? God says, I could tell you how. In fact, I've already told you how. Your problem is you're just as much a problem as the rest of the people, but you don't want to see that as not just them, it's you. So my prescription is for them and for you the same. That person that went to the doctor had to wait on the doctor to get the test and the labs to find out what was their issue. So the doctor said, you have so-and-so. God says, you are depraved. That's my eternal diagnosis of you. You don't like that. It doesn't take away from your depravity if you don't like it. I have a solution. Because you don't take the solution doesn't mean the depravity is going away. In fact, the depravity will kill you. It's up to you. Wickedness, depravity, plotters of those who do evil at every level. How could I do wrong to this person today? That's a sign of depravity. It's a sign of a reprobate mind. Here's another one, covetousness. Greedy desire to have more than what is due. More than what God gives you, more than what you have. Covetousness has a wider and deeper sense as designating the sinful desire which goes out after things of every form and kind. It is also described as avarice, or the desire of obtaining what belongs to others. It's not only to get what you want, it's to get what you want that other people have. That's why God in the Ten Commandments mentioned about coveting your neighbor's wife or ass or possessions or whatever, because they're not yours. See, ours is a covetous nation. Oh, we use different little, fanciful titles, but it's all the same. We call it that, we're a dependent class. You owe me something because you have wealth and I don't have it. You're not going to use it, so I want that. That's exactly what this is. That is reprobation. It is a desire which goes after, pursues things that are others that you don't have. That's covetousness. When you raise a dependent class of people that think they owe you something, that is reprobation. You're raising a reprobate culture that thinks that someone owes you something simply because you just believe that they do. They have something that you allegedly want and need, and you don't want to get a job to get it, so you just take it from somebody else. And you think you're smart. No. And remember, you're going to see, I told you before, stupid is on this list too. Stupid is a part of being reprobate. That is reprobation. That's not yours to have. This vice, and that's what it is common in the world, but it would be particularly so where the other vices enumerated here abound and people were desirous of luxury and the gratification of their senses. Rome was particularly desirous of the wealth of other nations, and hence its extended wars and the various evils of use of force and conquest. So One of the reasons why there was so much war because of covetousness. I mean, Rome wasn't poor, but they just wanted more. Okay, let's just take that land too. I want that coastal land. You got enough coast, yeah, but need a better view. I mean, this stuff goes on to whatever application you could make it. Next is maliciousness or malice. How can you not see this in our own culture? You see these things on the increase all the time. You live like me 62 years. Okay, if you were to go back 50 years, most of this stuff would never happen. You would never see this to the degree we're seeing it now. People who were born 10, 15 years ago, they don't get it. Their history begins at their birth. So they don't do the wise thing to go back in history and see how other people lived back then, how your father and grandfather, great-grandfather lived, and see the cultural shift of thinking, of mentality that we see today. 40 years ago, we'd be reading this a different way. Now we see it every day and every minute. You can't turn it on the news for a minute. The first thing, hi, I'm so-and-so, and I'm so-and-so. Romans 1 today showed us this. That's what they should say every day. Romans 1 declared thus and such. Sports next. Okay? Maliciousness, malice, ill will, and an inward desire to hurt somebody. It is a special sort of vice denoting malevolent or malicious temperament towards one's neighbor. If we talk about a neighbor, we're not talking about neighbor by way of location. A neighbor could be anybody. It is a form of wickedness that is not ashamed to break the laws. It will break a law to hurt the neighbor. It's malicious. Here's another one. Full of envy. Stuffed. Remember that word full means stuffed. Man, I'm stuffed. Yeah, with envy. Stuffed with thoughts filled with envy. Webster's dictionary stated the following in terms of the definition, quoting, pain, uneasiness, mortification, or discontent excited by another's prosperity, accompanied with some degree of hatred or malignity, and often with a desire or an effort to depreciate the person, and with pleasure in seeing him depressed, end of quote. So you see someone actually prospering or succeeding, and you're so stuffed with envy that it excites you with anger to see someone actually prospering. You try your best to depreciate that person by trying to, well, we'll see here, speak of that person in such a way to destroy that person, depreciate the person, and seeing him or her depressed. So you say things about that person in the hopes that you can destroy that person and depress that person. That's envy. And you're full of envy. This passion is so common still that it seems to be natural to the human heart. It is one of the most common manifestations of wickedness and shows clearly the deep depravity of man. Benevolence or compassion rejoices at the happiness of others and seeks to promote it, but envy exists almost everywhere and in almost every human bosom to rejoice in the pain and suffering of others. Like I've told you time and time again, I run into all these people that think that people owe them something. I remind them, you're an idiot. No one owes you a thing. And you trying to destroy a person because they have something you want doesn't help you get it. You're a fool. Next is murder or manslaughter. The word used here denotes all manslaughter or taking of human life except what occurs as a punishment of a crime. So whether we're talking about capital offense at the time of where this was written, or capital offenses now, or what we call self-defense, there are laws in the land, of course, that citizens are allowed to protect themselves. So we're not referring to that. We're not referring to self-defense or things of that nature. We're talking about manslaughter. It was common among the Gentiles, been prevailed in all communities, but it was particularly prevalent in Rome. It is necessary only to refer the reader to the common events in the Roman history of assassinations and death by poison and the destruction of slaves, but in a special manner the charge was properly alleged against them on account of the inhuman contests of the gladiators and the amphitheaters. You see Russell Crowe and all that kind of junk. Well, they were doing that for sport, the slaughtering of human beings. These were common in Rome and constituted a favorite amusement with the people. People would love food and games was the expression. Give the people food and games. They'll do anything for you. Entertain their lust. They entertain their bloodlust. So Rome would accommodate them by giving over to the most violent of sports. And we see it today. We love to see the violence. It's incredible to watch. You see football, extremely violent. You see football now. I've seen football in the 60s. It is a totally different game. I mean, we're talking intentional harm. Helmet to helmet. No matter what the laws are in football, no matter what the rules are, no matter what the penalties are, no matter what money you're going to pay, you see people intending to hurt other people. Intentionally. Go after that quarterback. Take him out. You see this stuff in football. People getting hurt. People getting hurt for life. Brain damage. Broken limbs, etc. Taking a person, flipping them over like a jiu-jitsu throw and throwing them to the ground instead of a regular tackle. It's not necessary to flip somebody over in some judo throw. That's not necessary. Or take the helmet, hit it at the very soft spots where they just had surgery. How about baseball? It used to be baseball. It used to be an American sport. Now, I've seen, Joe Gibson throw 90-mile-an-hour fastballs intentionally at people's heads. And they asked him, he said, yeah, I did it. Joe Gibson was a great pitcher. He didn't have to do none of that. But he did it intentionally and boasted about it. Sad to say, great pitchers. I remember the time that Juan Marshall and the baseball bat incident where someone ran out there with their bat at him. It's become a violent sport. That was an exception, but now it's not uncommon for pitchers to throw 100-mile-an-hour fastballs at a batter's head intentionally. And then what do you do when your team comes up? You do the same thing. Really? That's called malice. That's called malice. How many players have careers ended because of that? And do we need to even go to MMA? I mean, boxing at least tries now. I mean, the ref would stop a fight like, no. I give him a lot of credit. The referee has to have some kind of omniscience to think beyond what he's seeing. You know what? No, this ain't going to end right. And the announcers get mad at the ref. The ref is doing his job. Many of these guys see enough death in the ring. Permanent damage. It's that lust, that bloodlust. We want to see this. Well, we think it should have went another round. I don't get the ring, then do it. It's easy to sit on the sideline and talk foolishness. You see a guy's head getting pummeled. He's not going to recover. And the ref says, that's it. He waves it off. There's some dumb announcer who wants to get in and act like he could have gotten it. Well, get in there, get your gloves on. Or shut your mouth up. Referee's thinking with his mind, we're not going to let this go any further. It's the bloodlust and people booing and throwing things into the ring because the fighters aren't, beating each other up like they want them to because of this bloodlust. MMA is notorious for these things. Broken limbs, I watched a couple of fights. I have not watched an MMA fight in a while. It may not be because of what I've seen, but then again, maybe it is. And subjectively, I'm just not really wanting to see much of it. But I've seen a fight where a guy he kneed the guy in the face, and you heard something went. That was his skull and his nose. And the winner, of course, going around boasting and bragging and all that. I would think that there would be some humility, like, wow, is he okay? Nope. Around boasting and bragging. Guy's skull, and showed the x-ray, his whole skull was all cracked. The fool went back to fighting. Like, some people just don't learn. And people were cheering, and then some people like, oh, that's terrible. Wait a minute, you were cheering for bloodlust 1 second ago. Now all of a sudden, oh, this is terrible. Hypocrite. You wanted that to happen. Originally, captives, slaves, and criminals were trained up for combat, but it afterward became common for even Roman citizens to engage in these bloody combats, and Nero, at one show, exhibited no less than 400 senators and 600 knights as gladiators. They're fighting each other for the death. This was all entertainment to people. And as these games grow more violent in America, don't be surprised. They want to see ground and pound. I mean, they ground and pound. They love that. They love to see that. It's the bloodlust. What else? Debate. In other words, contention, strife, to be contentious, arguable, or as we would describe some to be touchy or quick-tempered. You know touchy people? Well, good one. What's so good about it? That's debate. That's the word. They're touchy. You could do better. Well, why don't you show me then? You just can't reason with touchy people. You know people like that? Are you and I that kind of person? Touchy, debate, contentious. Next is deceit, which speaks of treachery, lying, falsity, misrepresentation, nuisance. In other words, it is to bait someone or to take someone with a bait. It is to be deceitful. Oh, yeah, I'll lure this man or woman into this so-and-so. But at the end, I'm going to get what I want because I can get on TV and say I was whatever. I'm not sorry when a woman or a girl or a man, I was invited to so-and-so's hotel room at 2 a.m. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I have no sympathy for that. Don't tell me some man invites you into his hotel room in some obscure hotel at the 2 or 3 a.m. mark, and you think you're going to be talking about a script. You're the biggest dunce on the planet. All your senses should be ringing like, no, this isn't right. You ought to be like, no, not happening. Something in your conscience ought to go, this isn't appropriate. I don't know, maybe your conscience is seared, you don't even care. Normal societies go, no, that's not good. That's just not good. I don't feel comfortable. And then they say, well, I didn't feel comfortable, but I went anyway because blah, blah, blah. Should have never went. Reading some of these things that everyone, I guess, is allegedly involved in now, 14-year-old girls and 16-year-old girls and what have you, going into hotel rooms of these mega stars and they wonder what in the world's going on. Whatever. Next, malignity. Speaks of a bad character, depraved or depravity of heart and life, malicious, craftiness. This word signifies not malignity in general, but that particular species of it which consists of misrepresenting the words or actions of others, or putting the worst construction on their conduct. They say one thing, you take it, reword it, with the intent of destroying this person's character. You misrepresent what they said. That's why when people, always watch out when a person says, oh, what you're saying is this. Correct them. I just said what I said. I don't need you to reinterpret it. I just love when people like to try to reinterpret the things that, or what you're really saying. I just told you what I don't need you to tell me what I'm really saying after I just said what I said. Need to stop this stuff. Nip it in the bud, Ange. Okay? Need to put that to rest. Don't let people interpret what you mean. Like I taught you time and time again. Never allow the listener to interpret what you mean. Say what you mean so they can understand clearly what you mean. Because when you tell me something, I'm going to interpret what you said as what you said. There's always this danger of when you say something and then people interpret exactly what you said like I would, and you come back later and say, well, that's not what I meant. Well, you better tell me what you meant. Because normal people take you at your word. I'm not going to sit there and say, well, what do they really mean? No, I mean what you told me. I'm not trying to play your mind games. Tell me what you mean. Because I'm sure going to tell you what I mean. And I ain't going to apologize for it, because if I did, I wouldn't have said it. So you find that person, they say, what you really saying was what you really meant to say. I know what I meant to say, fool. I would stop people like, what are you talking about? Are you hearing me? To quote from you, are you listening to me? I don't need you to interpret anything I just said. I just said what I meant to say. Or what you really meant to say was, what, you in here now? You in my brain? Shut up. You have to stop people like that, because they'll take that and go somewhere else with it. What he said was, that's not what he said. That's malignity. Manipulating what he meant or what he or she did. That's a sign of reprobation. What else? Whisperers. In other words, secret slanderers. Oh, golly. Those who are secretly and in a sly manner, by hints and innuendos, detract from others or incite suspicion of them. Like I told you, that one was saying, well, so-and-so said this. I said, did he really say that? She said, well, that's how I interpreted it. See, that's malignity. Well, that's how I interpret what he said. I said, whoa. But that's not what he said. No, that's what I interpreted. That's called malignity. That borders with this whisperer, too. Hints and innuendos to attract others or to incite suspicion. You say, this is what, you say, well, so-and-so said this. Well, did he actually or she actually say that? No, that's how I interpreted it. Oh, whatever. Why am I going to listen to you then? You know, if you do that to someone else, when they didn't say anything, what will you do for someone that does say something? Make a ring-a-ding-ding, make a bunch of notes there. It does not mean those who openly slander someone, but that more dangerous class who give hints of evil in others, who share the evil report under a restriction of secrecy. Well, I'm going to just tell you this in private. Watch that person. Watch that person. Make sure you don't tell anybody else this. That's a whisperer. Be careful. Careful about that person. Why are they telling you? Why are they telling you? You ever thought about that? People come and share with themselves, why they feel comfortable around me? I know the dirt on everybody. They should be glad I'm not a rat. They always share I'm like, I got work to do. I could talk to you about this. Not really. I'm going to tell you anyway, whatever. I've ignored you. Say all this information that I'm not even looking for. Be thankful I'm not a malicious person. Be thankful I'm saved. Because the information people give me could destroy lives. And I just go, you know what? Whatever. I'm not a rat. I don't rat people out. It isn't worth my time. Because sooner or later, what you're going to do is going to be revealed anyway. Why do I need to rat you out? I don't even look for this stuff. I just mind my own business. And this is what they do. They share the evil report under a restriction of secrecy, knowing that it will be divulged. So they tell the people they know they're going to share it anyway. Well, can you keep this a secret? You know that person can't keep no secret. Or, this is what I heard, and they said not to say this, so they want you to keep it a secret. You know that person ain't never kept a secret in their life. Before you turn your back, 19 people just found out about it. Before you left the room, 37 others then spread it. But that's what a whisperer does. And it's all the sign of a reprobate mind. This is our own society. You say, then who then can be saved? Yeah, with men this is impossible, but with God all things are possible. This class of people abounds everywhere, and there is scarcely anyone more dangerous to the peace or happiness of a society than having a bunch of whisperers. And that's just verse 29. Well, let's go to verse 30. Backbiters, haters of God, despiteful, proud, boasters, inventors of evil things, disobedient to parents. At the reading of this, you can see this is our problem in society. Every one of them. To the lesser, to the greater degree. We're just not willing to accept God's description of man. But just because you don't accept it doesn't mean it's not true. We know it's true. We can read this and go, wow, yeah. Backbiters. Wrote a whole song, backstab. They smile in your face all the time, want to take your place, the backstabbers. Yeah. Popular song. You know why it was popular? Tell me why it was popular. Because it was true. You can put that song on right now. And people go, yeah, that's right. Even some backstabbers would say that's right. Smiling faces sometimes pretend to be your friend. Can you dig it? They were popular because they were true. Sometimes pretend to be your friend. Smiling faces. They do tell lies. That's what we see here. Backbiters are open slanderers, those who calumniate or slander or speak ill of those who are absent. Now, they don't say this in the presence of the person, but they'll say when the person isn't around. While the whisperers declare secretly and with great reserve, they're trying to protect their own interests, the supposed faults of others, backbiters proclaim them publicly and boldly. They just say it. Well, so-and-so. They don't even care. They just say it. The Bible speaks a lot about this person. Calls him a fool. A fool will express everything without any kind of shame or any kind of control. The wise person keeps his mouth shut. Fool blabs all his or her business. Next, haters of God, which means hateful to God, exceptionally impious and wicked towards God. I mean, just in your face, I don't believe there's a God. Okay. We know that already. We just look at your life, we know that. And you've been given over. You're reprobate. We know that. We can see that. The thought of God to the person or persons is that he is odious, revolting, and repulsive to them. You talk about God, you see people, their whole visage just, their whole face just turns. They get sweaty and start palpitating when you start talking about God to them. They act like they know enough about God to hate him. They don't know anything about the Lord. They want nothing to do with anything that has to do with God, including his word, his children, his truth, his church, nothing. Anything that has to do with the Creator and his demands of rightful worship of and praise and thanksgiving to him alone is loathsome to the hater of God. Everything they do is designed to say, no, God, no. They hate him. They despise him. In fact, their whole behavior in this chapter is a one big fat no. What else? Despiteful. Don't you understand your society you're living? Oh, 87% of this believes in God. No, they don't. They don't believe. They're a bunch of reprobates. Believe in a God. Well, that the God might be themselves. You ever thought about that? You don't get specific, but the God. That's why I love these polls, because sometimes they're all manipulative nonsense. Despiteful, one who lifted up with pride either heaps insulting language upon others or some shameful act of wrongdoing. This word denotes those who are abusive or treat with unkindness or disdain those who are present. Whisperers and backbiters are those who culminate those who are absent. The despiteful person does it in your face. He doesn't care. She doesn't care. It's their pride. Well, you did so and so, you blankety blanket. They don't care. In your face. Yeah, it's called being despiteful. It's a sign of a reprobate mind. Some of you, I don't, list these and watch these stupid reality TV programs. Now, all you're looking at is Romans 1. Boo, boo, boo. The whole thing is boo, 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 boo. Run around, boo, 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 boo. The so-and-so of Atlanta or the so-and-so, boo, 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 boo. These women have nothing better to do than to show how despiteful they are of each other. And you think that's entertaining? It may say a lot about you. Next is proud. An overweening estimation of one's own means or merits, despising others or even treating them with contempt, or to be haughty. It is an inordinate self-esteem and unreasonable conceit of one's alleged or supposed superiority in talents, beauty, wealth, accomplishments, etc. I'm better than you because, I'm just better than you because I have and I've been and I whatever. Till reality hits them. Then they realize that all that stuff really didn't matter. I'm better than you because I drive a bigger this, or I live in a bigger that, or I'm so and so and so and so. People will be proud when they suppose, or where they suppose none are superior. And it is only the proper biblical worship of God as created that reveals a great and infinite God, that teaches that all blessings are His gift, that He has given us the place where we occupy that will produce true humility. We may note also that the system of paganism did not disclose the wickedness of the heart, and that was the main reason why they were elevated in self-esteem, because where God is, you don't esteem yourself be higher than anybody. You're like, no, sorry, God is great. We have a society that says no God, then man is great. I look at people elevated. They're the biggest dopes in the universe. Some of the biggest fools. I told one, do you actually hear what you say before you say it? Do you think things through before you... They're like, what? You heard what I said. Do you actually think things through what you're going to say before you say it? They looked at me and said, because what you're saying is so stupid. Do you actually think about what you're going to say before you actually say it? Most people don't think about anything. It just pours out. The heart of the fool poureth out foolishness. The mouth of the foolish pours out foolishness. It just comes out. The wise person always keeps that mouth closed, always thinking what I'm going to say before I say it. Because I don't want people to think, well, I don't want them to find out that I'm just a fool. So you have to exercise wisdom with your mouth. Think about what you say. Think about the effects short and long term. Think about how it reveals you. Think before you speak. You have boasters is the next one, who is an empty pretender, where you have the person who's proud that has accomplishments. The boaster has nothing. Okay, this wickedness is closely connected with pride as well. A man or woman who has an inordinate self-conceit will not be slow to proclaim his own merits to those around him, even if those merits do not exist. Where you have the boaster and the proud person in the same room, the proud person would boast in their accomplishments. The boaster would make up stuff to try to give the impression that he or she is someone who is accomplished. That's what they do. Someone would say to me, well, Pastor, you boast a lot about things because you've written a few books. No, I've written 28 books. How many have you written? Thank you. I don't have to go around boasting about, I don't need to boast about what I've done. I mean, I've done what I've done, and that's it. It speaks for itself. I don't need to puff it up. If spiritually wanted, it's available. Oftentimes it's done for free. We live in a cheap society. Anyway, inventors of evil things. In other words, divine. Listen, how could you not figure this one to be a part of our society? Come on. Devisers of new kinds of sinning. This almost certainly refers to their seeking to find out new arts or plans to practice evil, new devices to gratify their lusts and passions, new forms of luxury and vice, etc. So intent were they on practicing evil, so resolved to gratify their passions, that the mind was excited to discover new modes of gratification. This evil mind will produce new modes to indulge in vice. Whereas man can make great gains in science and learning and technology, the person who is the inventor of evil things will take those great technological advancements and use to promote more evil. In cities of luxury and vice, this has always been done. Vices change their form, people become satiated, and they are obligated to resort to some new form. The passions cease to be gratified with old forms of indulgence, and consequently people are obligated or obliged to resort to new devices to pamper their appetites and to rekindle their dying passions to a flame. I mentioned earlier about MMA. When MMA first came on the scene, people were outraged. They were outraged. They thought, what the world is this? Nothing but thuggery and fist fighting. Might have the years changed that attitude. Once people begin to become horrified at the brutality of these things, now there's no shame. In fact, they'll pay $80, $90, $100 to see people beat each other in the head. They'll invite their family and friends over to fight night. They'll invite friends and family over, hundreds of dollars and sometimes thousands of dollars worth of snacks and foods and what have you, to watch a fight, to watch people try to kill each other. And when they see, the blood coming out and the mouthpiece fleeing across, they jump up and down. This is great. This is wonderful. Beyond the sport, it's this bloodlust. See, people got tired of boxing, saying, well, boxing's boring and, we just don't see the kind of fighters we used to see. Yeah, you don't see rock'em sock'em knock people's heads off. That's what you really want to say. Their splendid entertainments, their games, their theaters, their sports, cruel and bloody, were little else than new and ever-varying inventions of evil things that gratify the desires of lust and of pride. That's what happened in Rome. They just kept getting more and more violent to satisfy the people with food and games, because they just satisfied the lust, the bloodlust, the thirst of violence for the people. Then the people wonder why there's violence in their neighborhoods. They're programmed towards violence because their minds are reprobate. How about this one? Disobedient to parents. Absence of love and respect to parents. If there has ever been a singular clear proof of reprobate mind, this one is for the books, friends. There's no question. Fellow reprobates from all quarters of society are teaching your children how to be reprobate against you. You send your kids to a system that's teaching your children how to be reprobate against you. They make decisions for your life they don't even allow your own parents to be involved in. They teach courses in school they don't even allow your parents to know in advance. They're teaching your children. This public school system, for the most part, is teaching your children how to be reprobate. And while you're busy being distracted by nothing, you wonder why your little girl has suddenly moved from sunflower dresses to mini skirts and 9 pounds of makeup looking like a hooker. You haven't figured it out yet. You haven't figured out how you're directly responsible for allowing yourself to involve your children with friends and school systems that teach them how to be reprobate. Frankly speaking, that nature they possess will do a fine job of rebelling against you anyway. If they decide one day on their own to say no to God, you won't need a school system to teach them to be disobedient. Most of them rebels going to be disobedient the minute they say no to God. That's why God created switches. To drive to drive foolishness out of the heart of the child, so the Bible teaches. And a lot of you professing whatever you think yourselves to be, you're responsible too for your children being reprobate because you ain't put the rod to their behind and taught them any understand it. Yeah, I said it. You teach them yourselves to be unruly and to say no to God. Disobedient to parents. Every TV program you watch where there's children, you see the smart alecky kid rebelling against, their parent or getting sassy. I'm going like, that ain't real life. Not where I grew up. You wouldn't get 1/3 of that sense out your mouth and you felt that hand upside your face. Mom had incredible speed, when she chose to get them switches and strops. Yeah, it curbed our language too. It's yes ma'am, no ma'am. Yes mom, yes dad. I to this day, yes ma'am, no sir. Like they should be saying that to me. It's all right. I'm still polite. I remember them switches and strops real well. You get that indelible thing in your head, it controls your mind. It beats that foolishness, reprobation out your behind, out of your whole life. But yeah, disobedience. I just don't. What was that? What you got a dental problem? You about ready to have, but get some. Hope your dental plan. You about ready to lose a couple of teeth. Teeth, I know. You're gonna have a problem right now with that attitude. But I see them on TV, and the parent, they're scared. Well, you're a hypocrite, Mom, because excuse me. And they get to have that long dialogue with they mom, long dialogue. Oh no, baby, no. Well, that's it. Once the suck of the teeth began, here it comes. The switch was coming around the corner. Now what you got to say now? I'm sorry. What? I'm sorry. And there's more switches. God made a whole lot of trees. That's what we used to do. Didn't have so much of a problem that we have today. But I digress. Your reprobate minds let you to do that. Y'all say no to God too. Y'all say no to God in regards to your children. Listen, in closing, the greatest reprobate minds of all time are church reprobation. Because you're the ones going around professing to have a relationship with God. You're the biggest reprobates on the planet. There is no greater reprobate mind, in my mind, than the church. A fake church, because they do nothing to promote the true and living God. They are the greatest violators of the plan of God ever. They make people think that God is in agreement with their foolishness, and he's not. Well, I intended to finish, but as always, it's not my intentions that matter, it's the time factor. So next time we will finish, guaranteed, this first chapter of Romans. Lord, again, thank you so much for just teaching us what is so blatantly evident in our own society, our culture. I pray, Lord, that we would see your description of our ailments as human beings towards you, and then the solution, of course, being the gospel. That's the only remedy that you give to a person or persons, a society such as this. Thank you again for your mercies and grace to all of us. In Jesus' name, amen. Lord willing, tonight we're going to continue in Galatians chapter 4. We're moving rapidly right along in our series, both series really, but especially the Galatians series. So, Lord willing, we'll see here at 4 o'clock Pacific Standard Time. God bless.